Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. We will get started in just a few minutes. We'll probably do about 102, 103, just to give everybody kind of a timestamp there. I want to make sure we get the most folks in the room here. Hope everyone's day is going well. Happy Wednesday. Good to see you all.
We do have a link. I will send it into the chat in just a second. Thank you for asking.
Thank you, Kristen. Yes, thank you for asking. All right, we'll give it maybe one more minute. I want to be mindful of everyone's time. I think Katie Durio has jokes in the chat, and I do not know the answer to that. What is a tissue's favorite dance? Do tell, or if anybody wants to guess. A boogie. Oh, that's good. Thank you, Katie, for bringing the humor this afternoon. I appreciate that. If anyone else has jokes, please feel free. It's a good way to start the afternoon. I appreciate it. I hear ghosts like that dance as well. Oh, that's a good one. Oh my goodness. I feel so out of the loop with jokes. That's hilarious. All right, let's get the rest of these folks in here. Okay, let's go ahead and get started, everybody. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. This is the CTC Community Technical College Running Start Series, our February 19th installment. Today, we are going to go from 1 until 3 p.m. And I just wanted to welcome everyone. And we are going to be recording today. I do want to mention, usually we have breakout sessions halfway through. Today, we have a very packed, robust agenda. So we will not be doing breakout sessions. So I just wanted to let you all know that ahead of time. And thank you so much. Kristen has just dropped the PowerPoint in the chat, so you all can refer to that as we go through here. And we will go ahead and do introductions next. So let me go ahead and flip our screen here. So welcome everyone. My name is Stephanie Rock. I am a policy associate in student services and K-12 alignment at the Washington State Board for Community and Technical Colleges. It's great to see everybody today. I'm going to go ahead and kind of just go around the Zoom room and let our presenters today introduce themselves. I will mention we have a student financials focus on our session today. So we've got a lot of our great colleagues from the state board here today, as well as OSPI. So I just wanted to mention that ahead of time. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Christine for introductions.
Thanks, Stephanie. My name is Christine McMullen, and I'm a policy associate in the student services and K-12 alignment area. And I often work very closely with anything related to admission, registration, advising, and then I kind of tangentially brush up against Running Start. And I will turn things over to Kristen.
Hi, folks. I'm Kristen Jowie. I'm the Program Administrator of Student Services and K-12 Alignment, and I work on dual credit programs.
And we'll go ahead and turn over to Tim. Yep.
I was going to say, are we going down the line?
We're just going to go down the line. Yep.
I'm Tim McLean. I am the dual credit program supervisor at OSPI. Pleasure to be back.
Thank you for being here, Tim.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brandon Reed. I am with the State Board in the IT division, specifically with the CTCLINK Student Financials module. And the Running Start pages, the custom build resides within my team. And so we try to make sure it's working for you, and we'll take care of whatever you need. Alec Risk is our trainer. Alec?
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I am Alec Risk. I am the trainer on the student financials team, and we'll be going through some of the CTC link processing today.
Wonderful. Thank you both. And Emily, I don't know if Emily's on the, oh, Emily's, I think, is going to be joining us in a little bit. I believe. I don't think I see her here yet. So Emily Mullins is our reporting and BI solutions analyst for CTCLINK. So she's really been such a huge part of our queries that we have for Running Start. So she'll be doing a presentation a little bit later just to highlight some of our Running Start specific queries and do some Q&A as well. So she'll be joining us in a little bit. All right, let's go ahead and jump right into things. Okay, so our agenda for today, we'll have about a half an hour, including this time here. I'll provide a few updates, dual credit updates, and then I'll turn it over to Tim for some OSPI dual credit updates. And then we'll have some time for Q&A, general Q&A as it relates to Running Start. And Tim and I would be happy to answer any questions you all have. And then we'll have about an hour for Running Start and CTCLINK. So specifically, we're going to hear about the Student Financial Responsibility Agreement, SFRA. So Brandon and Christine have been just so great to join us today and go through what that's going to look like for our Running Start students and just give some information about it as well. And then we will turn it on over to Alec Risk, and he's going to be walking us through the Student Running Start page walkthrough and provide some information. So part of this might be some new information for some of you. It might be some information you already know, but we just thought it would be important to provide some refreshers here too. So you might find that a little bit in this session, the Student Financials Focus session. And then we will turn it on over to Emily Mullins to go through some of the Running Start queries that we have and some new options as well. And then we'll have some time to just like wrap up and have Q&A at the end. So that's what our day is going to look like this afternoon. Okay, so first up, I have a few updates to provide. So yesterday, Tim McLean and I were in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where we had the great honor of representing Washington State Dual Credit for our College and the High School Alliance, the cohort that we've been awarded as a state for College and High School Alliance, the next phase of dual enrollment policy. And so I know I shared this last time in January, but I just thought it would be important to touch on, especially since we really hit the ground running. I felt like Tim doing some really great collaborative work. So Tim was there, myself, Julie Garver from Council of Presidents representing the 4-year, and then Jamie Traugot, our Director of Student Services and K-12 Alignment. So we were really able to have some dedicated time to start at least brainstorming and vision planning about what dual credit can look like for our state and that vision. And that's what this grant that we were awarded as part of a 7-state cohort. So I can only speak for myself. I thought it was a really wonderful kickoff to this about 2-year period. It's going to go from December of 2024 to September of 2026. And the whole point is to receive some technical assistance and funding. There's about $20,000 associated to work with state coaches that have been assigned to us, which we started doing yesterday, and to set a statewide vision for dual enrollment. So if you want to read a little bit more about it, in the PowerPoint, there is a link there to the next phase of dual enrollment policy, a vision for the field. So that was put out, I believe, in 2023 by College and High School Alliance. But just really exciting work. Looking forward to really hitting the ground running and figuring out what those next steps are going to be for us and how we involve all of you experts in our work together. So just wanted to share out about that. I felt very energized by yesterday. And I don't know, Tim, if you wanted to make any comments about that.
Energized until the flight home at 11:30 p.m. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yes. It was a little brutal yesterday, but hey, we're making it through. So yeah, really great collaboration though. I really appreciated it. So just wanted to share that with folks. And so we're obviously monitoring what's going on with the legislation this year. So I have one bill I'll discuss, and then Tim will talk about a few that we're monitoring as well. So the one I wanted to just mention was SHB 1565. That's the expansion of the dual enrollment scholarship or continuation. That was a pilot program operated by WASAC, and it was to sunset in 2025 this year. And so this would continue that scholarship program, and the opportunity is for Running Start students specifically, and it also expands what that would include. So in addition to course materials, it would support materials for professional technical programs, pre-apprenticeship programs, apprenticeship programs, and also if funding is left over, basic needs support, pertaining to food and transportation. So monitoring that bill. I did want to mention that today it's going to be in House Appropriations at 4 p.m. today for public hearing. So just wanted to provide an update on that. And thank you, Kristen. Kristen's been dropping everything in the chat. Thank you very much for that. So you can take a look. Okay, and so the other piece I just wanted to mention is we are working in partnership with Council of Presidents in collaboration, and we have put together, I know not Running Start, but I know a lot of us live in both worlds. We have a college and high school webinar series that we have put together. We're excited about. Our first webinar is going to be next week, February 26th from 11 to 12:30. And it's going to be focused on just like college and high school 101 and responsibilities. And the audience, I just want to make sure this is really clear. We have invited our K-12 partners, but also we really hope that our higher education partners, you all that are touching college and the high school, will attend as well. We will, for our first session there, Tim Stetter from UW in the high school, the director of UW in the high school, will be doing the presentation, and then we'll have time for breakout sessions, very much how this has been structured for a collaborative conversation between K-12 partners and higher education folks, just talking, having space to talk about college and high school and answer questions, anything that comes up. So our first one will be next week, and then there's some save the dates there for future webinars that we have planned and scheduled. And then my final update is, it's not really an update, it's more of an ask. If everyone could just make sure that their Running Start college program contact list is updated on our SBCTC Dual Credit page, that would be great. We want to make sure you all can contact each other. We can refer students that might contact us at the state board to you all, and getting the correct person at your college. So if you haven't yet, just make sure that information is updated so we can make sure that we communicate effectively for students and for everyone. Okay, and with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on over to Tim. Thank you so much, Tim. I know you've got a lot of wonderful updates for us today.
Sure. Thank you, Stephanie. So first and foremost, I believe this was probably addressed in your last meeting that I was unable to attend, and it has gone out through our listserv and then through yours. But I continue to get questions about summer Running Start and where that stands. So the latest, and it hasn't changed in a while, is that standard Running Start remains in effect. We expect that it will for the foreseeable future. And so when I refer to standard Running Start, I'm talking about students who have FTE capacity up to 10 credits in the summer term. So that is going to be managed in much the same way that we have done it the past 2 years with the summer RSEVF, the FTE calculations and so forth, submitted through the P223 process. Nothing's changed there. What I did want to address is the question of after exit funding, because it continues to come up. And so I feel the need to continue to say, we don't know. After exit funding is entirely a legislatively decided matter. And so whether that proviso is kept intact is anyone's guess. If I had to read the tea leaves, I would say that it's probably unlikely under the economic conditions in which we're operating, and the fact that there have been huge investments in Running Start between the 1.4 FTE and the availability of Running Start to rising juniors. I don't think that the case can still be made that the after exit proviso is needed as it has been in the past, but that's not a decision for me to make. So stay tuned. This has always gone through a proviso as opposed to a bill, so there's nothing I can point you to suggest that it is or isn't happening, or it is or is not going through committee. It's just a wait and see. And if we find out in April that it is a thing, we will be managing that and trying to get guidance out as quickly as possible as to how that's going to be managed. I suspect if it did come to fruition, we'd manage it much the same way that we have, because it's a familiar process. Like it or hate it, we know what it is. So I would just finally advise that you not suggest to students that this is going to be available. It's just, I think, highly unlikely, but it's not in anybody's sphere of influence right now to affect that. So stay tuned. Second thing that I wanted to address is the question of multi-term registration. We've heard from some of the K-12 partners with whom you work that there is a shift being made towards multi-term registration. And by that, I mean fall deadlines for both fall and winter registration, and a separate deadline for spring and summer registration. That's within your purview to control. I want to be clear about that. What I want to ask, however, is that as those decisions are made, and Stephanie has worked really well with me to kind of clarify why this shift is occurring, and the financial aid components associated with it, please provide some runway for the schools and districts to adjust to that and engage in some collaborative conversations about how that might look and what that might mean. Having spoken with Stephanie, I fully understand the rationale behind it. And in a perfect world, it could actually be a really efficient way to get this done. And it certainly could cut down on workload if done in collaboration. What we're finding, however, is that it's impacting the ways in which our high school counselors advise students. They are very accustomed, of course, to meeting with the students on a quarterly basis, talking through what their educational plan is, in that quarter or that term and throughout the school year. And when they're being asked to do RSEVFs for 2 terms instead of 1, it's been confusing, and they have not been prepared to do that. So I would just ask that if you are considering making that move, or if plans are already in place to make that move, that you reach out to the schools and districts with whom you work and really prepare them for that, so that it's not catching them off guard. I think moving into the future, and I'm going to touch on this in a minute, we will find a more efficient way to do running start overall. And so we are sort of in a transitional period, I sense right now. This may not be as big of an issue in the future, but at the moment, it's a pretty significant shift for our schools and districts to make. So I ask that you just work really collaboratively with them, and call on me if you need support in doing that. But I know there has been some tension with schools and districts in which this has already occurred, and I want to acknowledge that and make myself available to help work through it. But for the future, please work with them in making those kinds of changes. We'll leave time for any questions that may arise out of that or any of these other topics. The dual credit notification template, let me get all my words out at once, was presented to you last time, I believe. Stephanie could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that went out via email and was embedded in the PowerPoint. That's available on the call out box on our main landing page. So that's just for you to know about. That's in response to House Bill 1146 from last session. It's out. We've provided the guidance on it. The bulletin came months and months ago. So we're continuing to push that out. It'll go out in our next listserv as a reminder to schools that it's available, and we encourage you to make them aware of it if they don't seem to be already, and if you're looking for ways to market and encourage your Running Start programs or any of your dual credit programs, that's a really effective way to do it. So I wanted to put that reminder out there. As far as bill updates are concerned, Stephanie hit on the big one that is most likely moving, and it's the dual enrollment scholarship. There are 3 others that are in various statuses. House Bill 1273, now a substitute House Bill 1273, also has a companion in the form of Senate Bill 5724. That is Representative Paul's big dual credit, CTE dual credit bill. That has gone through various forms now. I think the most recent substitute is essentially expanding the current pilot in ESD 189 in the upper northwest part of the state, in which there is a lot of alignment occurring between the CTE dual credit programs in that neck of the woods and the 4 colleges, I think, that are connected to that work through ESD 189 and their partners. I'm not going to go into depth about it because there are 2 different forms of that bill, but I encourage you to look at it if you have a connection to CTE dual credit at your institution. The second bill is 1612. That's all about exam fee subsidies. It's very bare bones. It simply says that OSPI will subsidize exam fees. We do that already. So there's not much more to it except to state that as a fact. And it doesn't have anything to do with eligibility or amounts or anything else. So that's just something we're monitoring. It doesn't appear to have moved yet. And again, in the economic situation that we're in, don't know that it will, but worth mentioning. And then there's HB 1618, which is about college and the high school at private schools. Again, for those of you who connect with college and the high school in a dual role, that would be something to monitor. It essentially would subsidize or expand the current funding structure for public schools to private schools, any and all. That is another thing that I don't see moving, but if you wanted to check it out, it's essentially allowing for state funding to support college and the high school at private high schools. That doesn't mean private colleges. I should make that clear given my audience. It's about private high schools tapping into college and the high school. Finally, the thing that you're all waiting for is the RSEVF update. I spent a lot of time on other topics. I will pivot to the RSEVF. We expect this to be finalized on next week. So I will do a screen share in just a minute. But what I wanted to elevate is the fact that we got about 70 pages of narrative feedback on the RSEVF in the survey that we administered. So there was a lot to consider. And as I think we've mentioned before, we tried to take the approach of looking at what could be efficiently accomplished this year with the form that we're all accustomed to, and look to the future for more advanced, more sophisticated fixes. And so what I think you'll see in the new RSEVF is something that's very familiar, similar in a lot of ways, certainly in the content to what you've seen before. But we did try to accommodate your requests and changes. So with that, I am going to pull it up and let you see with your own eyes what we have done. Again, it's very similar in terms of flow and feel. The content in the RSEVF is essentially the same except for additions. There's nothing that we necessarily subtracted from the RSEVF. And so the additions that you'll see are things that have been asked for by higher ed. And we've tried to accommodate that. Here in the top right corner, we've added student over the age of 18 so that you can easily identify where a signature needs to be made or anything else that pertains to students under 18 versus over 18. We have also added homeschool by request. We have added private school students.
Hey, Tim, I think you might need to
request.
try to share first. Sorry, just wanted to jump in.
Are you not seeing it?
No. Oh, somebody can see it. Okay, they
Yeah.
can see it. Okay.
Okay, good.
You can?
Okay.
Okay, okay, just making sure. I thought I saw something in the chat that this
For those who
Perfect.
can't see it, you might need to click on Tim McLean's screen share instead of Stephanie Rock's screen share.
We're competing, Stephanie. That's the deal.
Or Stephanie,
All
you
right.
can turn off your screen
Kristen,
share
there
for
we
a little
go.
bit.
Hey, and I was clearly struggling too, so thank you. Appreciate people asking in the chat. Okay, go
No
ahead.
worries.
Continue.
Yep. So we've also added a field for students enrolled in multiple colleges. I want to be clear on this front. There's been a lot of debate around this issue. We are allowing space there for the high school counselor to identify what the other colleges may be. I know there has been a demand that the counselor tell you what the FTE is for the different colleges. And in point of fact, that is just not something they can do with any degree of accuracy. Ultimately, the student will sign up for as many credits as the student wants to or can at various colleges. So it is not the counselor's responsibility to determine how many credits go where, but this at least provides you the tool and the information that you need to make a phone call. That's been a longstanding agreement between SBCTC and OSPI is that we are responsible for saying how much FTE is available in whole. It is the college's responsibility to figure out that split. So I know there are mixed feelings on that, but we are trying to take a step in the right direction by telling you who you can pick up the phone and call within your system. We also changed FRPL eligibility a little bit. Now you'll notice there's not a section on this anymore because I know that the signature line was getting confusing to folks and it was a lot of information for a very specific thing. So what we have done is number one, in the student section, we have added this consent to share information, and it's a simple checkbox rather than a signature or an initial. That tells you that the student has consented to share this information for the purpose of waivers, and then the high school counselor can check the box yes or no. I want to address this clearly that the counselors we know by now don't always have access to this information. This is a fix that is going to take some time to resolve. And so I ask for your grace for our counselors to understand that if this comes back unchecked, it is likely because they don't know that information. And it is not their fault that they don't know this. There are some very by the book folks in child nutrition who believe in student privacy and will not release that information. So what I've armed you with in the and we will be arming our counselors with as well, and have historically, it's in our FAQs. We've put things out about this before. There's an RCW. It's the Running Start RCW that indicates that this information needs to be shared. I can't myself say that this is going to be shared immediately from child nutrition, one huge division with school counselors, thousands of them. So this is something that's going to take some work. I am going to provide some guidance I'm going to work with child nutrition to provide some guidance out to their folks to encourage them to get this information out. But this is not a new problem. It's something we're just trying to take incremental steps towards resolving. So that being said, I'll save any more remarks for questions. And we did take the text from the box that was there previously, and we nestled it here in the parent guardian acknowledgement by request. There were a lot of people saying, why do they have to sign here and here? Made sense. So we dropped it down into the acknowledgement and summarized it a little bit to save some space. Those are the major changes in content. The other thing that I will note is we tried to create a more streamlined document by clearly identifying what is the student side of the document and what is the counselor side of the document. So you'll notice everything here on the left-hand side is student oriented until you get down to here, and everything on the right-hand side is counselor oriented. And we also moved some fields from what was traditionally a counselor responsibility to a student responsibility, because we are getting a lot of feedback from counselors that this is way too much repetition, way too much for us to fill out by hand or electronically. Students should know this information. And if they don't, the adults in the room are expected to help. So things like high school, district, the term in question, we're hoping the students come with these things completed. And if they're not, the counselor will be expected to help, but it's taking some of the onus off the counselors for having to complete that for every single student. So I will pause there unless you would like me to share, Stephanie, the summer RSEVF, which looks very similar,
I
but
think
has some subtle differences.
I think just saying that, I think folks are probably like, yes, please. So why don't we do that so they can see? I'm such a visual person, and I'm sure others are too. So it would probably
Okay,
be helpful.
I'm going to hit my my bullet points before I do that, and
Okay.
then we'll move on. So a few things that I wanted to note about the RSEVF. Number one, we are really asking for some partnership in completing these if they don't make it to you fully complete. We'd like to ask for some grace for the counselors. These forms aren't the Bible, in the sense that, like, if there's something wrong with them, it's not going to blow up the system. And so working with that student to get this complete rather than sending it back to the counselors would be greatly appreciated. What has been happening when these forms get consistently sent back to the counselors, it just stalls. It stalls the whole process, and the counselors get overwhelmed with things getting returned. So things getting lost in transit is a real situation that we're in. So please do your best to get these completed. If they come to you or you believe there's an error, to pick up the phone or some way connect with the student and or the counselor rather than sending them back. We have also included a new signature option that wasn't there, to permit a school administrator to sign the form in lieu of a counselor in those situations in which a counselor is not available. So that should also help alleviate some of the trouble that we've had in processing these forms, and it's something the counselors were just dying for. And I mentioned the FRPL RCW, it's there on the screen. It's also been sent out in various places, and it's in the FAQs. If you have trouble getting FRPL information, you are welcome to kind of leverage that RCW with your school or your counselor or even the child nutrition office and say, we really do need this information, and it's in RCW that we're supposed to have it. Finally, minor errors are acceptable. It is not the end of the world. If there is something that needs to be tweaked when it makes it to you, nobody is going to come in with black helicopters trying to sort that out. So just, again, have some grace and understand that the counselors are overwhelmed too, and whatever we can do to kind of support each other in this would be greatly appreciated. And with that, I'm going to share the summer form because we made some adjustments to that as well, to hopefully alleviate some of the stress. And it looks like I have the wrong form up. Let me do this. Are you now seeing the summer form?
I don't think
Good.
so. I think we're
No,
seeing the
yeah,
other
same
one.
one.
Wrong one?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me give it another whirl.
I do have some questions in the chat before we move on, Tim.
Okay, sure.
So Katie asks, do schools have a responsibility to translate the EVF in print?
Do they have the responsibility to translate it?
Mm-hmm.
No, that's something that I'll touch on in a moment in terms of what we are going to be, doing next steps. At the moment, they are not like legally obligated or required to translate it. It would be wonderful if they would. And in fact, I will reach out and see if we can't find a way to get this in Transact, which is the platform that does a lot of the translation for our districts. So it's a great question. It's been a question of capacity, but it's real. So
Okay, thank you. Keely asked, are you going to add a counselor signature section for the free and reduced lunch section like the current forms? Sometimes students will check these boxes.
Yeah, it is there. It's in the counselor side of the form. If you look at the header, it says counselor or high school district administrator. So the student is acknowledging their consent to share. It is still the counselor's responsibility to check that box, and the signature below is the point of verification. So no, we're not like requiring a separate signature like we used to. We don't need two signatures. We just need that box to get checked, and the signature at the bottom is the verification.
Thank you.
Hillary asks, thanks Tim for your work on the form and the fee waiver info. Will this also address the district-wide free lunch districts? We are not waiving for entire districts and still have students complete our waiver application individually. I think that is a point of confusion for counselors, parents, and students.
Yeah. I will try to include that in some guidance around the FRPL question. It is clearly identified in the FAQs that no, a student just for having been in a CEP district is not eligible for waivers, and I think you're getting to that point. They still need to be individually verified, but I understand the question in the sense of those boxes getting incorrectly checked. So I'll provide that in some guidance, and that guidance is going to come with the RSEVF. I'm realizing now that I'm sharing this, and are you seeing it, the summer version?
Yes.
Okay. There is an error on the summer version. I'll just acknowledge that, and it relates to FRPL. I haven't taken out this unknown not permitted box. There was some consternation around that, so we took it out. It was there. Sorry. We were just trying to acknowledge that some counselors don't have that information, and so the box inadvertently stayed on this version of the form. But otherwise, this form is consistent with what you saw for the most part, except obviously the FTE fields. What we tried to do with the FTE is acknowledge that there are groups of students that are not going to need this FTE calculation. And because one of the arguments has been that it takes a lot of work and multiple parties to pin down the FTE, we talked about it and realized we can't get away from it entirely. We need the FTE to determine eligibility for the summer, but what we can do is do it for fewer students. So just like we did for rising juniors last year by adding a checkbox saying this is a rising junior, you don't need the FTE calculation, we added these subsets. So we have juniors who never took running start. If they never took running start, they have FTE, right? They get 10. So if you check that box, it's an automatic 10. A senior who did not graduate in June and took no running start courses, again, didn't take anything over a 1.0 at the high school, didn't take running start, they're going to be eligible for 10. Check it, it's a 10. Took no high school classes and no more than 18 college credits. So this is your full-time running start student who isn't enrolled at the high school, could be a homeschooler, what have you. If they were not taking high school classes and they didn't exceed 18 credits at the college, then they too will naturally have FTE. So the hope was that in adding those, we would end up with fewer students for whom counselors have to go track down this monthly level of detail. So that's the biggest change you'll see on the summer. Everything else is relatively consistent with the fall RSEBF. Everybody good in seeing this?
Yeah, Tim, there's a question from Allison in the chat.
Mhm.
And this is why we decided to take off the unknown not permitted option when it comes to the FRPL eligibility in the past 5 years. We understand that this form is the way that you all as programs determine if a student is eligible for a waiver. And so that's why we talked about it and we decided to take off what was proposed as the unknown. So it will be a yes or no, because we know you're using this to determine if your student is SRSL. So
Yeah.
I think what Tim was talking about though was those specific districts that Tim, you might be able to elaborate on this, that deem all their students as SRS, well, eligible for free and reduced lunch. So maybe if you want to just touch on that there's a different process for those students. I think that's what the question is.
Yeah, it's tricky because when you have what are called CEP districts, community eligibility provision districts, it's essentially saying that we have such a great number of students who we're going to make everybody in this district eligible. That doesn't necessarily mean every single student is eligible for waivers. And so there still needs to be an individualized attention to those students. Now, the information, as I understand it, should be available in the student information systems for the counselor to identify the student as individually eligible for FRPL. The problem is, and I acknowledge it as a problem, is that they don't take the extra step, right? They're like, everybody is, so we're going to check the box. I don't have an easy fix to that except to try to provide additional guidance, and we've done that through the FAQs and other methods. But like I said, when we release the RSEVF, I am going to try to attach to it some guidelines, similar to what I'm presenting to all of you, just around expectations and guidelines for this forum, and the FRPL is going to be front and center. I'm also going to talk to our child nutrition folks here at OSPI and say, can you get this information into the hands of your people who are often the ones that are withholding the information?
And just to follow up to that, Allison made another comment, which I hear you 100% on. So just to clarify then, if a high school counselor indicates that, yes, the student is eligible in those districts for the FRPL, that means to us as colleges that then we're going to assume then we don't need to do any other additional hunting or searching of that information. That's good enough for us on our end as colleges to be like, okay, this is an SRSL student, a waiver student, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Tim,
do we have any? Yep.
Just a few more questions.
Mhm.
I think that Allison and Hillary's question about what Stephanie just asked you was answered, but Allison and Hillary, please weigh in if that is not the case. Folks are saying thank you for making the updates, so good job. And RSLE asked, just to clarify, does the high school fill out the whole FTE table, including college FTE, or are we responsible for filling out college FTE?
As was the case last year, they should be filling it all out. Now, I know some colleges have partnered, and I love partnership. You can do it this way with the high schools and the districts to say, yeah, we'll do one half, you do the other half. That's great if you're willing. Ultimately, the high schools are the keepers of the combined FTE. It is the high school that can put the two together. The frustration that you'll hear is that there's no one singular person that does that, right? The counselors are usually expected to complete the form, but they've got to ring their registrar or their business office to get that information, which is their frustration with the form. It's our frustration with the form. It's imperfect. But that's where you'll get the frustration from the counselors. But ultimately, that FTE question is a question of funding. And so ultimately, the funding is K-12 funding. So they're responsible for it.
On the form that you just shared, there's a fourth checkbox that says no more than 18 college credits per quarter. That makes it read like it's an annual limit of 18 college credits. So might want to change that to 18 college credits per quarter instead of the way that it currently reads.
Okay.
Let's see.
Good point.
Someone asked for the section requested running start classes by student. I'm concerned that some students filling out this form might think that this is a class enrollment form and think that they have done everything they need to do in order to get enrolled.
So that's valid. That's also how this form has been. It has always been I think it used to say recommended, and we changed that to requested because there has been an interest on the part of counselors to ensure that the students are doing some of the legwork in identifying what courses they intend to take rather than the counselor. Counselors have said, I can't sit with a student in the time that I have available and flip through a college catalog to find these courses. Like, we need the students to come with a plan and we'll help them along the way. But I would ask all of you to weigh in. I mean, do you get that feedback from students? Because I think it's generally understood that this is not their registration. But I could be wrong.
Hillary responded with, students already think that with the term recommended. And someone suggested, can we use potential classes to enroll in or something like that, or suggested. And then
I'm open to the feedback and would say that you can email me with that. I don't think we have time in today's session. I'm trying to be respectful of your time, Stephanie, and your partner's time, to get into all the recommendations. You can drop me some thoughts. The reason that we put requested is because we're asking for them to request these classes, in the sense that this is for the students to complete. We're trying to change that expectation to a degree and, permit them to come with their request. Not that anybody will deny it, but that they then can request these courses, and the counselor is then responsible for identifying the equivalency and talking them through that.
Perfect. If folks want to keep popping things into the chat, I'll make sure that gets to Tim after today's session, and just keeping an eye on our time, then we'll go ahead and move forward.
All right.
Quick question though, do we have an estimated release date for these new forms?
Next week. And the last thing I wanted to say on this, and this is also why I can only take so many suggestions at this point. We've run this through SBCTC, through Council of Presidents. We've been working on it for a bit now, and we tried to pull everything that we could out of the survey. That was really the intent of the survey, was to solicit some of this. So I get that it will never be a perfect document, but in the interest of time for us to get it out, I also want to acknowledge the more changes we make, the further we get away from the form that we've been using. We've tried to add things while keeping some consistency, because the last point that I was going to make is we have made subtle enough changes to this that, in the interest of time and the counseling schedule, students can still use last year's form. That is a decision that we came to collaboratively. If you get a 24-25 RSEVF for a student intending to enroll in the fall, that is perfectly acceptable. There is not anything, again, that is groundbreaking about this that is going to completely change the process or the purpose of the form. So it is perfectly acceptable to take last year's form. Again, we're trying to eliminate the back and forth and stalling the process. So if you get a 24-25 form, you can accept that. It doesn't need to be sent back and redone.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Tim, for all your work on this. Thank you for being here today, and just hearing our feedback and answering all the questions. And I just want to reiterate what Kristen just said. We will be saving the chat and working with Tim to make sure he's getting all this information from you all. Really appreciate the feedback and the comments. And Tim, as always, just really appreciate the collaboration and the partnership. Really appreciate you being here with us today. So thank you so much. I know we're running way
Yep.
behind time, so I'm going to kind of move us forward here. Thank you for everyone's patience. Thank you, Student Financials, for your patience. So we're going to go ahead and turn it on over or move to our next portion here. So we have a whole session focused on Running Start and CTC-LINK. And I believe Brandon Reed and Christine McMullen are up first to talk about Running Start and the SFRA. So I will go ahead and turn it on over to them, and they can explain more. And thank you so much, you all, for being here.
All right, I hope I'm sharing the right screen.
I think so. There we
Okay.
go. So we're here to kind of share a little bit of background with you about a document that students will have the opportunity to sign, certain students will, called the Student Financial Responsibility Agreement. And just a little bit of background about this from a policy perspective. As you can imagine, anything related or pertaining to finances or money has a lot of both federal and state laws associated with it. And in particular, these laws exist to both basically, demonstrate where there might be some risk from a financial standpoint on the part of the institution, but also to uphold student basic rights in certain areas with regard to assuming debt, possibly being sent to collections, things like that. So basically, the idea that if you just post it on your website or you have it in your catalog, that should be notification enough for a student that they understand that there may be costs associated with attending college. That's not enough. That these laws actually have a part in that contains a student needs to acknowledge that they may be entering into a debt situation. So the Student Financial Responsibility Agreement is something that we've crafted at the state board end with a lot of input. Brandon's team has been working tirelessly on this. But basically, a place where on an annual basis, students can acknowledge that they may be accruing a debt, that their unpaid balances need to be paid by the stated college deadlines. If they have a non-sufficient funds check returned to them, that there may be some additional, return check fees and or even interest charges for unpaid balances. And then ultimately, what types of educational debt, if sent to collections, or if at some later point a student goes through a bankruptcy proceeding, what can be discharged versus what can't be. So there's a lot of detail in there. Our practice is, again, these impact all of our colleges. So really looking at a global solution through a lot of consultation with our assistant attorney general, kind of going back and forth. And essentially there is a process that can be rolled out where students can acknowledge or attest that they understand that they have these financial responsibility agreements. Now, that being said, Brandon's going to go a little bit more into this, but this may or may not necessarily apply to all student populations. So I'm going to turn things over to you, Brandon.
Yes, as Christine mentioned, the need to make this global and to have a broad student understanding that isn't differentiated between the colleges is really crucial because of the legal ramifications involved here. And so the requirement and one of the key attribute of it being a universal agreement. And so Well, you see there's an asterisk here next to all students, and we'll go into that in a minute. But really, per Washington state and federal bankruptcy laws, anybody who owes a balance to a state agency needs to be able to have that acknowledgement on record, and the system of record, of course, being CTCLINK. And so this will happen, and this is going to be requested of students each year. And for the purposes of this agreement, the SFRA, the year will begin in the fall and end in summer. As you can imagine, once we get this rolling, which we do anticipate to be in March, there will be both the summer and the fall asked for at the first go. And so be on the lookout. There was some invitations sent out very recently to the listservs in regards to learning more about this and having a more in-depth presentation. So keep an eye out for that. Another attribute being, of course, that the CTCLINK be the primary method of attaining this acknowledgement. And so fortunately, there's really going to be two avenues that a student can go down to submit one of these. The vast majority are going to be agreeing systematically through CTCLINK. When they go into self-service, they will notice a to-do item. And this to-do item is essentially a service indicator. And that service indicator, once they select it, will take them to the terms and conditions and the verbiage that we have had approved from the Attorney General. And they'll read through that and accept it. And then that is stored, and that will be kept within CTCLINK for any future needs, whether it's going to be a collection agency asking for proof that they signed this, what term it was associated with, things like that. And so the need to have it both systematically running, which will be there's going to be jobs that run CTCLINK to both apply the service indicator to newly term activated students, and then to remove it if they end up not being registered. And all of that management is going to happen here at the state board within the student financials team. So our folks are going to be making sure those jobs run, and that they are working on a regular basis so that these service indicators are out there and on the right students. The second avenue of management is going to be for students that don't sign up through CTCLINK. So if it's going to be someone that's sitting down with you at the registration desk and may need to actually have a paper form and provide a signature on a document. The second aspect and the second ability to update the system of record will be for a college staff person to then submit or apply a service indicator onto a student that then says, hey, we as the college, we accepted this form and we have it saved, so that if necessary, we can provide proof that the signature is on file. And so those are, you know, the kind of the need for it being both systematic, and then of course for college staff to be able to kind of manually update the system for this. In addition, we wanted to make sure that the state board holds on to and is able to provide and be transparent with all of the documentation with regards to this, whether it's copies of the verbiage, whether it's going to be an explanation online of what this project is about. And I'll provide the link to the reference center where we have all that information displayed now for your review. Kind of going back to the populations that will be asked to submit this acknowledgement. Currently, you know, if there's extensive barriers to enrollment, those populations aren't going to be asked, or it's for populations that really aren't charged tuition and fees. We're not going to be applying the service indicator or asking for the acknowledgement or the SFRA in advance. And so that does include Running Start students, adult education, open doors, DOC students, things like that. Now, if there are balances that are attained from those populations that don't provide an acknowledgement, the college is still legally able to ask for those funds owed. What they won't be able to do without a SFRA on file will be things like charge that student the 1% interest, things like sending that balance to a collection agency so that you have a third party actually looking for them. And so there is some significant management there that will be accommodated via some reports that are being created and have been built, and in addition to well, the queries are going to be utilized in order to disseminate who doesn't have the ability to be placed with a collection agency, or in the long run be assigned that 1% interest. And so as I mentioned, for the populations that don't have it on file, that but do have balances that are being accrued, there is delivered communications processes that we have set up for many of the colleges that will send out communications, that will track all of the balances and make sure that these are systematically communicated so that we can at least try to get these balances collected. And as I mentioned in the attributes slide, there's really going to be two avenues as far as collecting this information. The first of which, that a vast majority of the students attending our colleges is going to be systematically. They will be, again, venturing on to their self-service after being term activated. And before they're able to register, they will need to go in and make sure they acknowledge and review the information that's these terms and conditions for their financial agreement. And then, as I mentioned, just to reiterate it, there will be the ability for college staff to update the system so that they can tell CTCLINK, hey, we did receive a paper signature, and for this academic year, we have it on file. And so, again, kind of going back to the fact that Running Start students are not currently going to be asked to sign this, and so they are within the excluded populations. And with that, I will ask Alec Risk to start kind of his review of some of the process Running Start pages.
Thank you, Brandon. And everyone bear with me because I haven't been on Zoom in a fortnight. And so I'm so used to WebEx to make sure I click the right buttons. Hopefully everyone can see the Running Start resources page. On this, I wanted to start off by just providing some resources for CTCLINK and specifically Running Start processing that we have available. So we have the SF Running Start section within the CTCLINK Resource Center, which we will view in just a moment. But within that specific section, I have two QRGs that we're going to kind of be going through today, which is the process Running Start and as well as the high school data roll. So those two resources are within the reference center and available for you to view, and we'll look at those in just a second. And then Canvas, previously we had Running Start within the SF 100 Canvas course, and we've been, as a training team, we've been updating our Canvas courses this last year in 2024. So most of those are complete, but there's still some outliers, some updates that we need to do, and the Running Start piece is one of them. So look forward to some updated Canvas material for Running Start in the near future. And before I get into that, this is the CTCLINK Reference Center. Hopefully everyone can view that. Give me a nod.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can see it.
Perfect, thank you. The reference center, at the very bottom of the reference center, you'll see the 9.2 student financial section. The 9.2 is going to go away eventually. But on the left-hand side, you'll see the SF Running Start section. So by selecting that, it provides you with our list of Running Start QRGs, quick reference guides that we have available to you. Again, we're going to be looking at the process Running Start as well as the Running Start high school data roll. But we also have additional ones, the assignment of Running Start student groups, Running Start queries, which will be talked about in a little bit. And then we also have the Running Start admissions processing guide, the forms and bulletins. We try and update that as much as possible whenever there's a new form or bulletin that's been provided to you. So that's another resource available. And then we have the AEF, the special funding. So previously we had some summer programs for grants and whatnot. Those were listed. Those are no longer active, so they have been removed. But if there's any special funding that your student populations will be receiving, we will have some additional QRGs available for that. But the process Running Start, so that's what I'm going to go through first. By selecting that, you view the process Running Start QRG. Lots of useful information found within this. The coding guide is linked at the very top. It also provides you with the security necessary for viewing these pages, and then some drop-down menus to view specific information regarding the Running Start custom page. So we have the new update Running Start student. We have the update view student groups. This previously was titled adjusting billing units. We've now changed that to self-pay versus school pay. So it goes through some of the intricacies with adjusting students that may have to pay out of pocket to the school pay. We have the Running Start billing query and then the high school data roll. Those are all drop-down menus. By selecting them, it opens up that drop-down menu. You can deselect to shrink it. So let me get back into my PowerPoint. So you should be seeing the CTCLINK process Running Start PowerPoint slide. So as indicated, we have the respective drop-down menus within each section. For the new update Running Start student section, this is a great little section that will allow you to understand how to update the grade level and max units. The view or update/view student groups, this is where you can identify if the student is an SRSR or SRSL student. The self-pay versus school pay, this is where the override checkbox will come in, which will allow you to determine which will be populated. And we're trying to identify if the student is going to be paying via the self-pay or if the high school is going to be paying. And then the Running Start billing query, we're going to be discussing that a little bit later, and same with the high school data roll. One note that I just wanted to point out, this custom page for Running Start within CTCLINK, it originally had a classic view and there was some things that we wanted to get updated. So a lot of the stuff that's in this page has been custom updated to reflect allowing some accessibility as well as ease of navigation through some of the important pages. So the student groups that was added, the connection between the billing units, which we'll see in a little bit, that was also updated, and the override checkbox that was updated. But we also built into your configuration the 9-10 rule. So if you're familiar with legacy speak, we had the 9-10 rule that you had to do a lot of special steps in order to process those students. That's essentially with your configuration been built in. So there's not a lot for you to do, but it does identify those students. So with student groups, because that's a CS core function, but it's very helpful and important for your Running Start students because it's how we identify your SRSR versus your SRSL students. So student groups are nestled within tuition groups. And what tuition groups are just specific populations of students. So your undergrad students versus different tuition groups that are established for your institution. What connects the student group to the tuition group are going to be criteria and equations, and those will connect the two together. And this allows for waivers to be manually applied to your tuition group term fees, alleviating the need to manually apply waivers. So simply putting a student into a student group allows for the or it doesn't require you to manually assign waivers. It will do it automatically. So student groups, once a student is applied to that associated student group, the waiver will then apply to that respective student or respective student group. And then the student group affiliation, it will adjust the charges on the student account, which is also viewable within the custom running start page. And that'll be done once tuition calculation has been processed. So a couple important things that I wanted to note: student groups are very important for your running start populations, and it's how we get those waivers to apply correctly and get those charges to apply onto the student account. So really quick, the high school data roll. This is a batch process, which essentially allows you to copy over multiple students from one term to another. So it's going to pull in all of that bio demo information from one term to the next, negating the need to go into each individual student's running start page, and copies all of those over at once. Very important though, the term roll process. So your SF folks do a quarterly, sometimes they do it for the entire year, a term roll process that pulls over fees, makes sure, ensures that those fees are accurate, allows for payments to process online, establishes a due date, your refund percentages, all that kind of fun stuff. That needs to be completed prior to completing that high school data roll. So just work with your SF folks, make sure that term roll has been processed for the upcoming quarter, and then you can go ahead and process your high school data roll. And I think, yes, that's where I'm going to now hop into the system and take a few look-sees at a couple pages. So I am going to be on the process running start page. So if you wanted to follow along, that is the QRG for that. The navigation, student financials, tuition and fees, CTC custom, because this is a custom page, and then student running start. So I'm going to pull that up now. And once you navigate to that page, it will bring you to the search page. At the very top, we have the ID field. You can enter in your student ID. I already found one. The academic institution, I'm going to be picking on Olympic today. And then several other fields. So there's a term field, last name, first name, term alternate key, which I'm going to be utilizing to search for my student. We also have if the student is active, inactive, maximum units, units taken, your student group. So lots of fields for you to play with to look for a range of student information or students themselves, or you can identify individual students. For today's session, I'm just going to be looking at one respective student. So in the term alternate key field, I'm going to enter 2251, which is going to be, excuse me, the winter of 25 term. Once I
Alec, can I jump in really quick? On this
absolutely, Spencer.
page, the reason you're using term alternate key there, the term field also does work, but in order for it to actually pull something up, you need to populate the academic career. That's typically going to be undergrad. So I know that your term alternate key works, but typically if you start from top to bottom, that might throw some people off. So just if you select undergrad at the academic career, term will pop up for you.
Yep. So as Spencer indicated, if I wanted to show that, if we just entered in the term, entered in 2251, it's going to give me no matching values. That's because that academic career is not populated. So by entering in the undergrad and then entering 2251, it will then pop up with the term. But a quick shortcut, if you didn't want to enter those in, is just utilizing the term alternate key. So 2251, select the search button, and it brings us to our custom page. So I am in a scrubbed environment, so we don't have to worry about PPI and all that fun stuff. At the top, we have our student information, the biodemo information. So we have our student name, again, scrubbed information, student ID, what respective term we're in, and then their career. Underneath that, we have the student additional bio information. So their email, again, scrubbed, not real. Their home phone, cell phone, parent, guardian will be listed within there. Underneath the student additional bio information, and again, you're probably familiar with this page, but we're just going to walk through a couple of the key features. The student running start information section. So within this is where our school district information is going to be populated, as well as the grade level, and then the maximum units. I indicated earlier that the maximum units is tied directly to the FTE units. So in order to change those FTEs, you simply need to adjust the maximum units. So if we wanted to adjust from 17 down to 15, if we select the tab button, it will adjust the FTE down to 1.0, which is our our 1.0 FTE. 15 is 1.0. The counselor information, if you wanted to enter that in, you could enter that information there if your school utilizes that field. And then also the comment section. Now, this is a page that these comments do retain within this page, but they're not really found anywhere else except for one particular query. If you wanted that, we could look for that for you and get that put into the chat. But these comments are strictly within this page. For this high school information, during the high school data roll, this information will populate for the upcoming quarter once we've copied that over, which we'll be doing in a little bit. But before we get into that, I'm going to finish up with the rest of these, this page, as well as the billing units tab. So student groups, very, very important. Again, this is what helps identify your student population to be SRSR or SRSL. It gives you a list underneath that student groups on the right-hand side of student groups that the student is populated within. We also see that there is an active row. So originally the student was put in as an SRSR student, but it looks like the same day they were moved because we found out that they are SRSL. So this is our running start waiver group. And we know that because of the date as of, and then the status, whether it's active or inactive. But if we wanted to get into some of the details surrounding those student groups, or even potentially update that student group, by selecting the Update View Student Group section, or hyperlink rather, underneath the student group section, it will pull up the student groups page. It'll give you potentially the warning message, you need to update historic rows. You can simply say yes or no. But by selecting that, you can now view all of the student groups that the student is assigned to. So by selecting the View All within the Academic Institution Details section, it pulls up all the student groups, and you can scroll to view all of them, or you can simply select the next arrow to see the next row. I'm going to just expand everything. So if we scroll down to our running start waivers, we have our academic institution, and then we have our student group. For this student, it's SRSL. We can see it was active, effective 9/3 of 24. We can also see that the SRSR student group that was applied has been made inactive on this page. It occurred on the same day, so it was just likely a mistake where we wanted to fix that student. We found out they were SRSL, so we adjusted it by adding a new row. By adding a new row, it made that student active for the SRSL. So very, very useful information. You can update your student groups this way to ensure that the waivers are being applied correctly.
I guess
Okay.
jump in one more time, Alec, here.
Yeah.
What's displayed on this page here before you jump here, can you go back running start page?
Absolutely.
So what's displayed here does depend on your student group security. So if you don't have access to view or update even the SRSL or SRSR or any other student group on the normal student group page, it will not show up here for you. So I've had some tickets with people saying, you know, the student's getting charged running start tuition, not normal tuition, but I don't see the student group on their account. They're looking at this page. You have to have access to at least view the SRSL and the SRSR in order to see them here. It does respect those security roles. So if you're seeing the student get charged running start, but you don't see the SRSR or the SRSL on this page, that is a security, probably a security issue at that point. And yeah, I saw you highlight those roles there, Alec, that they might need in order to view it.
Yep. Thank you, Spencer. To the left, I just wanted to point this out. To the left of the update view student groups hyperlink, we have the term begin date, the term end date, and the max prog date. These were added just for a reference. So when looking at a student specifically trying to update their information, this is a quick reference to ensure that the effective date on either the running start information or on the student groups, that you're populating them correctly, because they need to be on or before the start of a term to ensure that that student is having their waiver, potentially if they're a SRSL student, apply correctly onto their student account, which would remove or reduce the total that's due. So these are just for reference for you to quickly reference based off of your academic calendar. Okay, so next up, we're going to select the Billing Units tab. On the Billing Units tab, again, we have the biodemo information at the top. So we have our student information. We also have their email, home phone, parent, guardian, all that fun stuff. Down underneath the student biodemo section, we have the current student enrollment. This provides you with a list of classes that the student is enrolled in for the respective term. So we're looking at winter of 2025. These are the classes that this respective student is enrolled in. We can see there's Fast Fitness, US History 1, Comp 2, and Intro to Business. Now, there's a couple important and useful features within this section, and I'm going to highlight those really quickly. By selecting the Status Rule Attributes tab, it'll pull up some additional information respective for this class and what's going on with the student account. So by selecting the drop date / refund percentage, you'll get additional fields. By selecting this arrow looking button, which shows all columns, you'll get a view of everything that's going on with this student with the respective classes. So if there was any rules or exceptions that applied to the classes, for instance, the 910 rule, if that was going on for this respective student, it will populate in the rule exception. There's also some other rules exceptions that will apply based off of how your class is configured. So if those populate, you can look into what rule exception is going on. There's a few rules exceptions that do apply. There was one that was sticking out in my head, and now I'm blanking on it, but that's where that information will populate. And then the add date, if or when the student added the class or when you added the class, the drop date, any action reason, and refund percentage, those will show as well. The important thing, another important thing that I wanted to highlight here is the school pay versus self-pay. So currently, this student is an SRSL student. they're not going to be paying any of their fees because they're all being waived. And the school is picking up each one of those. But in the event that you need to fix that and you want the student to self-pay for whatever reason, there could be a few. By selecting the override button on the respective class, this will allow you to adjust the school pay versus self-pay. So if we wanted to change this school pay to self-pay on the Fast Fitness, by selecting the override button, this will pull up the self-pay field and allow you to enter in an amount there or a credit total. So if we wanted to change that entire 2 credits from school pay to self-pay, enter in 2.00, and when we tab, it will now zero out the school pay, and now this student is self-pay. So when we look at the student account, once tuition calculation runs, they will then have those charges on their student account. So if we need to change from school pay to self-pay or vice versa, by selecting that override checkbox, we're able to adjust those credit loads from school pay to self-pay or vice versa. And last but not least, at the very bottom of the billing units tab on the left-hand side, we have the view student account. This will take you to my favorite page, and that is the customer account. So on this customer account, this is where all of the transactions are going to be seen. Because this is an SRSL student running start, we're not going to necessarily have any charges populating. But if we want to look at what's going on their account, we can go to this page by finding the respective term and the respective account type. We can dive into the details utilizing the account details hyperlink to look at what fees are being applied and what waivers are being applied. So this is the student account. We can see technology fee, student self-service fee, and those are being waived by the Running Start fee waiver. This is again based off of your configuration with your student group utilizing criteria and equation variables. Because the student is in that waiver group or student group rather, those waivers are being applied onto the student account, resulting in the student not having to pay. But again, if we wanted to adjust from the school paying to the student paying, utilizing that override feature will get that account to update correctly. That's all I really had. So yeah, I was going to say, Spencer, if you wanted to add in anything.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of on the fly, but if you go back to the view student account, so this is brought up recently, so it might be a good one. You can see that fees are the only thing there. No tuition was charged. So some colleges wonder, why don't we see it? We're suppressing the tuition, the operating, billing, and S&A for these students. We're just suppressing it, so it's not even charging to the student account and then being waived for units within their FTE max. So if they go beyond that, colleges will see tuition, and you saw the mandatory fees here kind of operate separately. But for tuition itself, if they're taking 15 units and they have 17 units of eligibility, you're not going to see the tuition charge then be waived for both SRSR and SRSL. If the tuition, those units are within their max, the tuition is simply suppressed. So just if you're wondering where the charges are for the student's tuition, we suppress them until it goes over the max units. And then for our waiver students, colleges, like you were saying, Alec, it is college by college. You can either waive or choose to charge, fees beyond that. So just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, thank you. And for those that do process within CTCLINK, you do have your test environment PCD. So utilize that when you're not sure what you need to do, or you want to see what the results will be based off of some of those changes that you make on that Running Start page. Feel free. You can't really break PCD, so go in there and test to your heart's delight. That is at your disposal as well. That's all I had for the Running Start page. So now I'm going to go into the high school data role just really quick to show you what that looks like. Again, the high school data role is simply just the batch processing rolling over from one term to the next, all of your high school bio demo information. So copy student high school data. You'll need a run control for this. I'm going to enter that in now. Oops. Man, I cannot type today. And by selecting the add button, it brings you to the copy high school data page. So this is where we will enter in our institution, picking on Olympic again, our career. So by selecting the looking glass, you can see we have 2 academic careers. We have undergrad or CNED. These are going to be our undergrad students, and then the term. So if we wanted to roll from winter to spring, enter in 2251 for winter of 25, and then 2253 to get us to spring 25. We will then select the run button on the right hand side. It'll take us to the process scheduler request page. Select the OK button, making sure that the copy student high school data within the process list is selected. And once we select OK, we can watch the process monitor for completion and run to success. So it is queued. Brendan, anything else you want to add? Spencer, anything while we wait for that? I talked really fast to try and stay on time.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to make sure Emily has time to venture through the queries.
Yeah.
I know there's a couple of chats about the customization and possibly adding in some views or some fields into the main running start page. And as you all know, this is a completely custom page, and so we do have the ability to adjust it. It is a really big deal, though. Remember, an adjustment to this page will be for all colleges, and the way to do that is through the enhancement request process. And all of the colleges have a primary CTC-LINK college leader, and so I would advise you to bring up the topic and have that conversation with the POC, as we refer to, and get this enhancement request in, and we will do as requested, no problem.
Thank you, Brandon.
We've got a
Spencer?
couple. Sorry.
No,
When
you're
you're
good.
ready, Alec, we've got a few other questions as well.
Okay, let me pull up the chat.
Um,
Spencer.
I'm happy to read them to you if that's helpful.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Okay. So Katie asked, with the new FTE limits, the 910 rules is no longer needed, correct? I've had it occasionally waive student tuition incorrectly and need to manually charge a student for 1 credit. And Nell said that she has the same issue, that she thought that they were advised to manually correct the 910 rule.
I know we kept it in there on purpose. We chatted about it, saying that the situation would be even more rare than it was before, right? With the increase of FTE, but that the rule didn't go away if that situation ever did happen. So it should be more rare, but I believe, and I see Stephanie, you're shaking your head, yes. So you might want to jump in after me, but I just know that we kept it in on purpose instead of retiring it when all this FTE increase stuff happened.
Yep, absolutely, Spencer. And I think you might have even demoed us like how to get rid of that in those situations. I will say, so it was a state board resolution, was how the 910 rule went into effect. And so we would need to go through, the reason we didn't do anything behind the scenes policy wise around it is because we really, as Spencer just mentioned, didn't think it would come up. It'd be a very rare situation that it came up, but it is on our to-do list of getting that completely to go away. So yes, so yes, go ahead and sorry, I'm going back to the chat. Correct it if it is an issue. It should be pretty rare from my understanding and from what I've heard from folks. But let me know if that's not the case. And we are working to figure out the policy behind that to eliminate it completely, but we haven't touched it because we didn't think it would be that big of like it wouldn't come up often, I guess. It's not that that's not a big deal because it is, but that it wouldn't come up often. We have a few each quarter. Okay, Jane, that's very good to know. So maybe it is something we need to reinvestigate and eliminate completely. Because again, it's one of those situations where policy needs to back it to get rid of something. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Spencer and Brandon, but that I think was our conversation back in the spring about the spring of 2024. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Monitoring is a headache. See, these are good things to know. Okay. Okay. So this is something we probably need to look at then. Okay. Thank you. And I see the thumbs up 100%. Okay. All right. This is back on our radar. Thank you.
I'm glad we brought it up.
I know. Thank you. And thank you. Thank you, Alec and Spencer and Brandon. I so appreciate you all. But I'll turn it back over to you to finish up with the questions. But I have that on my radar. Thank you, everyone.
This might be a just kind of brainstorming question, but Katie asked, I'm excited that EVF has a checkbox for homeschool. Where do folks capture it and plan to capture this information? And we've got a few folks who are weighing in about that.
Yeah, it looks like comments was one of them. Yeah, I guess that'd be kind of a policy thing that we might be able to integrate within this page. Perhaps like a checkbox that indicates if they're homeschooled or not. I'm not sure the best approach, but it looks like a few people have put that in the comments field.
And kind of going back to Brandon's point, it would be an enhancement request. So it's absolutely something we can look into. And I think everyone may be aware of this, that may be something that would just take some time. Because it's a long process to get something changed, as I believe Alec and Brandon were mentioning. This is a universal page and a customized page, so they could totally speak more to that than I can. But these are things sounds like we could do. But it would take some time. It's not like we could have this ready by next month.
Yeah, and I do like the other option of the no impact service indicator that can be applied onto the student account. That might be another good way to do it. I didn't highlight that earlier. So the service indicators will be found on the top of this page if the student has any. So if we need to view what they currently have, if they didn't have any, nothing would populate. But this student does have a negative service indicator, which just indicates that they're running start. And they've received a running start notice as well. So another useful feature on this page. That is a good thought though for the service indicators.
Thanks. Those are all the questions. I think there was another one, but Spencer inserted it in the chat.
Perfect. Really quick, I just wanted to showcase, so now that we've successfully copied over that high school data information, if we wanted to look at what that would look like on this page, we can pull up this student spring account, select the search button. I didn't show it before, but I know for a fact there was no school district information found, as well as the grade level found within this section for the spring of 2025. Now that we've done the high school data roll, this data is now populated within the student running start information section of the running start page. So originally this was all blank. Now that we've copied over, all of that data from winter to spring is now being populated for the spring term. And then we can just go in and update the maximum units if we wanted respectfully to this individual student. That is all I have. I know we're getting short on time, so perhaps turning it over to the next section. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Alec. Thank you, Spencer. Thank you, Brandon. So we have Emily Mullins next. Emily, did you want me to share my PowerPoint screen, or did you want to do that? I'm happy to do so if you would like me to.
Yeah, you can share the PowerPoint, and then
Okay.
I have some screens I'll be demoing. So
Thank you for joining us today.
yeah, thank you. And sorry if I missed introductions from earlier. I had a meeting conflict from 1 to 2, so I just joined this meeting a little bit ago. But yeah, I'm Emily Mullins. I'm a reporting and BI solutions analyst for CTCLINK. So I am on the reporting team and data services here at the Washington State Board. And I just work a lot with the running start queries. So that's, I think, why I was selected to present on that today. Thank you for pulling that up, Stephanie. And I am kind of in the same boat as Alec in the sense that I am way more used to WebEx than Zoom. So just bear with me because like I said, I have some screens I'm going to share to go over some of these queries. And I do have a second screen that I usually share, but just FYI, it has been a little bit glitchy at times. Hopefully that won't happen while I'm presenting, but you know, Murphy's Law. So yeah, so these queries, I'll just stick on the screen for a second before I actually hop over into either the QRG or the query. But the very first one is a really common query that a lot of the colleges use and that we get a lot of tickets here on our team and at the state board, just folks who have run this query and maybe have questions about the data or they want there to be fields added to it. And that's the running start billing query. So that's the very first one that's listed. This one has been around a while. It has been added onto a lot over time because, like I said, we have folks at the colleges who ask, oh, could you add this field or this field? And so now I would kind of call it's sort of like a monster in terms of size. But I did include the link to the QRG for this one. And then that's the screen, or I guess the first screen I'm going to try to share. Okay, is everybody seeing that? It should say the CTCLINK Reference Center. Hopefully somebody can confirm that.
Yep, you're all good.
Great, thank you. Okay, so this is the reference center and this is the QRG specifically for running start queries. And so the first one listed is the running start billing query. There is some information in here about the role that you will have to have in order to be able to view the query in CTCLINK. And then there's a note here about kind of an offshoot of that query, which is the running start billing query _HS. And I will get to that one in a minute. So just bear with me and I'll come back to talk about that one. So if you scroll down, it talks about the running start enrollment / billing query, and it gives like the navigation of how to get to query viewer, again, assuming that you have the role for that. And then it gives the query name, talks about where to plug that in, and then how to go about running that query. So it looks like in these screenshots that are here in the QRG, it doesn't actually show you any of the data. So well, actually, no, just kidding. It does. Looks like this screen here shows some of the data, of course, with student information redacted. I was actually just going to hop into the query itself just to kind of show what I'm talking about in terms of like how large this query has become over time. So I'm in the fields tab right now, and it does show you that there are 63 fields in this query. So it just contains a lot of information on the high school district, district name, high school name, and then of course the student's name and ID and information. So scrolling down, there is a ton of data in this query, and as the name suggests, it is related to running start billing. So this is a query that can be run to pull in some of the data that Alec was just demoing for us on some of those running start billing pages. So when he was on those pages, he was showing what the data looks like for individual students. And this is a query that you can run so it has prompts for institution and term. So let's just say Tacoma Community College wanted to run this for the current term. They would plug in their institution code and it would give data for like all of the running start students that are coded in the running start student groups. And it gives all sorts of information on their enrollment. So it'll give information on their classes, their instructors, grades. And then down here is where I know Alec kind of touched on this a little bit, but these are the student enroll billing units. And then so here's the units that are billed to the student. And then there's the running start billing units. So these are where it's making the distinction between units that are billed to the student versus units that are billed to the high school. So that is an important distinction that obviously a lot of colleges want to know for billing purposes. how those units are getting billed. And then all of these fields that you can see start with an RS. Obviously, RS stands for Running Start. There's some data in here on college level units, total units taken, then it breaks it down by academic versus vocational. And to give an example of a field that was recently added to this query, I would say probably within the past year. It used to be that only grades, I believe 11 and 12 were captured in this report, but there became a need to capture students who are in grade 10 who are in Running Start. And somebody can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that had to do more with some when the report is being run for the summer, there are students who are in grade 10. So that was an example of, this is a field that hasn't always existed in the query, but we received a request from colleges to add that. And then that was a field that we went in and added to this report. And then it looks like, yeah, so you've also got the total counts for grades 11 and 12. The override flag, that was something that was on the page or the screen that Alec had shared, so that somebody had asked us to add that flag as one of the fields. And then some information on students, advisors, GPA, and the instruction mode. So like I said, it's a very comprehensive query, lots of data in here. I could show, I tried to put together, again, I hid all of the student data from this just for confidentiality purposes. But these highlighted rows, this is running this query for a particular college. And so it's showing the district, the high school, the student group that student is in. And so each highlighted row is for the same student, but it's for each of the Running Start courses that they're taking. So that's why any one student will have multiple rows of data.
I don't see
Emily,
highlighted rows.
Yeah,
Sorry?
it's not highlighting.
So is it showing the Excel file?
No, I don't think it's
It's
pushed
not.
over. Yeah.
Inquiry
Oh,
manager.
geez. Okay. Again, this is where I am not good with. I thought I shared my second screen so that you guys could see whatever was on it, but clearly that was not a thing. Okay, are you guys seeing it now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so what I was saying is that these first highlighted rows all belong to one student. And just the reason one student would have multiple rows in this report is because it is showing a different row for each of their Running Start courses. So that's where, if we scroll all the way over to here, this is where you get a good visual of how it will show which courses and which units were billed to this student. So in this case, this student had one unit for this physics course that was billed to the student, but then all of their other courses were billed to the high school. And so that's why you're seeing zeros in this column, and then you're seeing values for units in the Running Start billing units column. And then you'll see a lot of rows that contain the same data. A lot of times that's if it's a sum row, then it'll contain the same data. So for example, total units taken, that means that this student took a total units of 16. So in no way should any of these be added together. It's already added together. The 16 is just meant to be the total for that one student, even though the student has 5 rows of data. So like I said, lots of good information in here. There's even the zip code for each of the courses that the student is taking. This student must be in the 12th grade because that's why there's a count for 58 here. And that just means that's the total count at that particular high school for the students that are in 12th grade. And then the total high school count is 99. So anyway, I just wanted to demo a little bit about what the data looks like, just because in the QRG, the screenshot cuts off. Just because there's so much data in this query that the screenshot is really only showing the first couple of fields. So that was the Running Start billing query. It looks like there's also, I did not include this on my slide, but there is a Running Start tuition due query. So that's a completely separate query. There's some information down here in the same QRG about how to run that one. So this is just, I'm not going to talk about this query at length. This is just kind of more of an FYI that this was included in the QRG. But I do want to come back to this top part where I was telling you how there's a completely separate query that we created about a year ago, I believe. And this is the Running Start billing query, but it has a HS at the end. So this query was developed specifically to fill out the P223 report, which some of you may be familiar with. I'll just pull up an example of what the report looks like. So this is a report that is submitted to OSPI, and the colleges submit it, and it just contains some aggregate information in here about Running Start headcount, non-vocational and vocational FTE, and then there's information on individual students who are enrolled at that district. So we developed a separate query that can be used to run and then populate the data in this report. So that query, I also pulled that one up. So the main difference in this billing query versus the original one that I showed is that it has fewer fields, and it also has some different fields from the original query. Let's see, for example, yeah, it has some of these, the Running Start academic FTE for each grade level, and that's because these are specific fields that were requested on the P223 report. And then it has 2 additional prompts in the query, whereas the original Running Start billing query, you just run that for the college and the term. This one has some optional prompts where you can specifically run it for one high school district, and you can also narrow it down to a specific high school within that district. So that just uses, so those prompts are kind of cool because even if you haven't memorized the code, you can use the little lookup feature, and then it pulls up all of the various different school districts. So you just select the code next to that. And then you can narrow the query results down by that district. The other thing we did when we created this query is you'll see in here linked in the QRG is a list of fields. We created that just because I think we realized that there are so many different fields in the query that it could be very easy to get some of the fields confused about, what does each field mean? So we kind of did, I don't know if you want to call it like a data dictionary of sorts. But like I said, this document is linked in the QRG. So basically it just spells out exactly what some of these abbreviated fields mean. So for example, CL academic units means college level academic units. Down here, it gives the distinction between what's the difference between, Running Start billing units versus Running Start total units taken. Talks about what UCL means, that's under college level FTE. So I just thought this was important for folks to have, because again, sometimes when you abbreviate some of these fields, the meaning of what they're used for can get lost. So this is available, like I said, it's linked through the QRG. And then so I think I've pretty much gone through the Running Start queries that are in this QRG. And then the last query that I did want to mention, this is another one that we created fairly recently. So this query is not necessarily about billing so much as it is about Running Start enrollment, and particularly identifying students who are enrolled not only in Running Start courses, but may also be enrolled in college and the high school courses. This was as the result of a ticket that was submitted to us by one of the colleges. They were noticing that they had some students who were coded in either the SRSR or SRSL student group, but who on some occasions did not have enrollment in a Running Start course in a term, even though they were coded in that Running Start student group. and those students were enrolled in college and the high school courses. So they wanted a query that could kind of easily identify students in multiple different situations. So this query is actually really good to run. And again, the prompts for this one, you just run it for your college and then for the term that you're interested in. But this is a really good one to run, and it will show you students that are either enrolled in exclusively Running Start courses, or they're enrolled in a combination of Running Start and college and the high school courses, or if on the rare occasion that they are only enrolled in college and the high school courses. So that's not something that happens at all colleges, and even of the colleges that have that latter scenario, it's usually only like a handful of students. But it was something that like I said, we've just received more and more tickets lately about not only Running Start, but about these students who are also in college and the high school courses. So this was a query we developed to help the colleges identify students in those scenarios. And I can just show you, I think I pulled some example data for that one as well. I did some subtotaling here. So if you're looking at these highlighted rows, this is a good example of this. These 3 rows are all for one student who's enrolled at this particular high school in this district, but this student has enrollment in a college and the high school course and also in a Running Start course. Whereas this student up here at the top, you can see is only enrolled in a Running Start course. So yeah, like I said, this query is a quick and easy way for colleges to identify students who might have some kind of interesting enrollment going on in a term. Yeah, so, and then Stephanie, I don't know, actually, no, I'm not ready to go back to the slide. Sorry, I have one more thing to share. Those were the main queries that I wanted to share with this group, but those are not the only Running Start queries that we have. We have a plethora of Running Start queries. So I just wanted to share this resource that we have called MetaLink. This is something that our team created, and you can have a login for MetaLink where you get even more cool features, but even if you don't contact our team to get a login, you can just click here where it says search tools. And then under reporting object search, it kind of has this cool functionality where you can do a free text search. And this is just searching for like all of the CTCLINK queries that we have. So I'll just narrow it to CS. And then you can literally just type in Running and Start and click search. And then it will show a list. In this case, there are 76 different queries found where folks have mentioned Running Start somewhere in the query description or definition. So like I said, I clearly did not have enough time to go over every single Running Start query that we have, but there are a lot of them out there. And so just wanted to make sure people knew about this resource for searching for other Running Start queries beyond just the ones that I talked about today. So in the interest of time, I'm going to wrap that up. I think I covered everything that I had on my slide, but I'm happy to answer questions. I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but yeah.
Thank you so much, Emily. And there were a couple comments and suggestions in the chat. And so I just had said that you and I will talk about that afterwards, just for time's sake, because I know we're wrapping up here in just a couple minutes. But thank you so much. Really appreciated it. And I just wanted to mention too, if you have any questions for Emily or any suggestions or anything related to queries, please go ahead and direct those towards me, and then I can make sure to connect with Emily and colleagues to see what we can do, or if we need to submit a ticket. But just thank you so much, Emily. So appreciate your partnership and all the work you do pertaining to Running Start our queries and all the support. So can't thank you enough for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up, everyone. Our next virtual series is going to be March 19th, same time, same technical date, 19th, 1 to 3 in the afternoon. We'll get out some information on the listserv soon about topics for that particular session. And then there's just some save the dates there for our upcoming ones next couple months. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for everybody who attended today. Thank you for the great comments and questions that you all had. I hope you found this all useful. And I also just wanted to really thank so much our student financials team for being here, for Kristen for all of the support behind the scenes, and also for Tim. I know he's not on here anymore, but just really appreciate us all working together, you all participating and attending and giving us feedback. It really is wonderful to have these monthly, and I really hope you all enjoy them as well. So there's some resources there. So as that have been mentioned throughout the PowerPoint, and I just wanted to wish everybody a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much.